Hello everyone, it's your bud. This is my video for my ship, the Onyx Star. I made it up a while ago. It is a mix of a few things. From Halo, it's a mix of the Infinity and the Spirit of Fire. It's also a mix of a battle barge from 40K and the Arcadia from Harlock Space Pirate. I would classify this as a super cruiser / colony ship. It would be outfitted with everything it could need, as well as too many guns. It's got the too many guns of the battle barge mixed with the UNSC sort of interior where you can have training facilities and living facilities, mixed with Star Trek Voyager with the Explorer class. Since this is supposed to be a colony ship, it can travel anywhere. It's got tons of extra armor and plating on the sides, fitted with as many guns as possible, and the color scheme would be black and gold, much like the Inquisitor battle barges. So yeah, theme it like an Inquisitor ship 40K. It's got super heavy armoring on the side, so I imagine that the guns would be placed as many places as possible, but that super heavy armor on the side is just, it's more for the ramming. The front of the ship is inspired by the Imperial Aquila, so it's got the sort of eagle shape, kind of. I know it's not very much of an eagle shape, but still. If you don't know what Onyx stands for, Nyx is the Greek goddess of night, so onyx is a stone of night. So its purpose is basically to be self-sustaining. It is a colony ship, but it is also sort of a mothership, because as you can see, there are vertical docking bays for dropping out frigates, much like the UNSC Infinity. I copied that straight from them. But that way, no matter what the limited firepower on the ship has, those frigates themselves can be very heavily equipped with large weapons. So it can deploy up to 8 ships that can surround it and then also fire on other targets. The length I'm going for is 4.20 kilometers. Yeah, it's a meme one, but it's also, I think, a practical size because it's just under half the size of an actual battle barge, which means that it can take a lot of hits. It's got tons of armor on the side, dwarfing many ships, but it is also minuscule in scale to the things that are out there in the universe. It does have a lot more maneuverability comparatively to the battle barge. So this is a good mix of the maneuverability that you see in Harlock's ship, all the way up to the almost impossible to break through Infinity / battle barge, where you know you can just ram into someone if you have to. And the Spirit of Fire slanted armor was a big influence. I used that on the sides and also the back. I envisioned those back engines as well. So you can imagine that top chapel area that's just sort of like a battle barge temple or chapel. You can imagine the back of that is filled with rockets. So it's got many multiple smaller rockets on the back of all of those temples, but it's also got one giant one underneath that runs through the whole of the ship. On each side of it, very much like the battle barge, there is a separate attached area that's sort of a secondary shield. It doesn't matter if those side temples fall away, because they're just there to add more protection to the rest of the ship. We'll call them, I don't know, let's just call them the side fortresses so we all know what we're talking about. Those side fortresses act as a shield, a kinetic shield, physical shield, blocking things from actually firing at the temple itself in the middle of the ship. But it's also really good because it gives bonus range. So you have more range by having those out on the side. It allows you to see under the ship and above the ship. And the back of the ship as well, you can see, has a curved form, and I'd imagine that very much like some of the destroyers from Star Wars that have the double layer and then a docking bay right in between. I'd imagine it'd be like that along the entire back of those curved areas, but instead of a docking bay, it's an engine. Both the external and the internal curves would have engines surrounded by heavily armored and overlapping plates. So that way there's a thin gap where the engine exhaust, where the rockets, I'm going to call them rockets or engines or whatever, I'm going to use a whole bunch of terms. But that way the engines can output through these shielded areas, and it can turn really quick by having these out on the side, and it can also have a lot of guns on the top and the bottom of those, so that way it can have even more range. So it's almost got 360 degrees of fire with some extended range. It can see underneath it. And I haven't really depicted it too well, but those two back curved areas, they curve downwards as well. You can imagine it like the bottom two wings of an X-wing. But instead of having legs that come out, it lands on those two backed curved areas. Plus, there would possibly be something that deploys from the front to under the nose. It would actually be a problem to have loose pieces. I'm not sure if there'd be a separate piece that comes out of the front of the ship for landing, sort of extending down, or if the ship itself could land as it is. I wouldn't want any separate pieces because the front of the ship, as you can see, it's the most heavily armored, and that is for ramming. As you can see, the Infinity and Harlock's ship, the Arcadia, do a ton of ramming, and it's just so satisfying to see that, so I'd imagine this ship can do that too. You can think of it sort of like an icebreaker, and I do like the curved fronts inspired by the Emperor's ship, the Bucephalus. I always thought like it'd be awesome just to have the big golden eagle on the front, but instead the Onyx star is black and gold trim everywhere, because why not? It looks way cooler. So it's meant to be a carrier. It can deploy 8 frigates from those bays. Now there would be separate side bays. I believe the side docking bays would be between those side fortresses, as we called them, and the actual ship. So those side fortresses are doing 2 jobs. They're extending the ship's reach for the range that it can fire at, and it's also covering up where all the side docking bays would be, where such things, if there were Pelicans or dropships or Thunderhawks or whatever version you're going for dropships, they'd probably come out of the side and they'd be defended between that fortress. Or the actual fortresses themselves would have many docking bays as well, because each fortress on the sides, like this is on a giant scale. So you'd have to imagine how many tiny docking bays could be everywhere. And I do like the fact that it's just got the one main engine. This can be upgraded or changed as you see fit. Add it to whatever universe you want to, do whatever you like with it. It's yours. Have some fun and enjoy. So, depending on what universe this could be in, it could be against complete aliens, it could just be in a low sci-fi universe like Firefly. This could still be possible. Humans could still scrape something together of this size. If you imagine this compared to the Citadel ships from Firefly, it's comparable. So you can add this to whatever universe you want, but in the Mass Effect universe, there are rules limiting what people can have. So there are only so many destroyer-class ships allowed per membership race, and depending on the rank that you have in the Citadel Council. So humans can only have a number of destroyer ships, and destroyer ships are ships that have a weapon that runs the entire length. As you can see here, I have no such weapon. The only thing that would run the entire length of the ship might be the internals for the engine, although it probably would stop around where the vertical docking bays start. But the entire front of the ship is meant for ramming, and it is meant to be solid, so there's no beam cannon or Mass Effect cannon like from Mass Effect. There's no main gigantic gun. The way that we get around this is, in Mass Effect, humans use carriers, sort of just like an aircraft carrier, but in space, carries tons and tons of ships, and we don't need a destroyer if we can have hundreds of little, just underneath the power level of a destroyer weapon, but it can still do a lot of damage. So this is sort of a low-tech, imagine this like the battle barge, but without the exterminatus, or without the heaviest beam cannons. There's no beam cannons on this. It would probably all be like those physical cannons on the side. Very, very low tech. And the way that this ship gets around the limitations of having no gigantic beam cannon or no Mac cannon or no like one gun running the whole ship. You see how Harlock's ship is equipped with many different guns all around it, but no main cannon. It'd be very similar like that. There's lots of really, really capable weapons, but no destroyer class weapons. However, you mix this with the Infinity and the ability to have the vertical docking bays to drop out 8 separate frigates that could be installed with, again, not technically destroyer class, but almost destroyer class weapons, and you can create a grid around you of 8 ships pointing in whatever direction you see fit, or you can use it like Ender's Game, where you can fire everything all at once. I'd imagine that besides the 8 frigates, there'd be a ton of opportunity for many small fighters, so have fun if you want to equip this with fighters. If you want to equip this with drones only and have the 8 frigates and then just drones, like, it's all up to you. And those back pieces that have engines in between the outer and inner curve, if you don't like that, you can change that to be an entirely enclosed firing area, so those could just be filled with more guns and more guns. It's all up to you. Take the inspiration from all the universes, have fun. I hope you liked my ship. I have a design for a bomber and for a shuttle as well. So if there's any interest in this video, I will maybe put out those designs for the personal cruiser and the bomber. Watch Space Dock and Halo Follower if you want more cool ship videos. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.